So yesterday it was announced that Carlo Ancelotti, the legendary Italian manager, has signed a new contract with Real Madrid until 2026. Now, for me, why this is mostly interesting is what does this mean for the Brazilian national team? Because all the chatter was that Carlo Ancelotti was set to become the new head coach of the Brazilian national team in the summer of 2024. However, if he's signed with Real Madrid until 2026, this can't happen. Now, for those of you aware, this man, Fernando Diniz, is currently the interim manager for the Brazilian national team. He is also the manager of Brazilian club Fluminense. Now, Fernando Diniz has been greatly successful in his stint at Fluminense, not only playing beautiful and attractive soccer, but he won South America's most coveted club trophy, the Copa Libertadores. And that got him the opportunity to go to the Club World Cup, which they ended up losing in the final to Manchester City. They did manage to beat the African champions from Egypt, Al Ahly, on the way. However, should Brazil continue with Fernando Diniz as their manager? Because we have to understand that while he's been manager of Brazil, they haven't really been so hot. They have had very poor results in CONMEBOL qualifying so far. In fact, they're only in a qualifying spot for the World Cup thanks to the expanded spots due to the 48-team World Cup that's going to be in 2026. And Fernando Diniz is an interesting character because he is a throwback to more classical Brazilian soccer and not the more modern positional play that has taken over the majority of European soccer. Fernando Diniz plays what's known as relationism, or a positional soccer, to where players are allowed more freedom and creativity to move around the pitch as they see fit. And also, they normally don't spread out the pitch as much. Instead, they try to get close to each other and close to the ball to build those relationships. And a lot of this is actually based on a lot of street soccer tactics, which works very, very well for many of the Brazilian players because they grew up playing in that style. However, one also has to note that one of the things that made the Club World Cup final very interesting was the Manchester City versus Fluminense game was a conflict of two different styles of soccer. Pep Guardiola's positional play with Manchester City and Fluminense's relationism of Fernando Diniz. And Manchester City won 4-0. Now, to be fair, this was not an apples-to-apples comparison. This was very much apples to oranges, because Manchester City's roster is 10 times more expensive than what Fluminense has. They had just significantly more resources, and at the end of the day, better players is more important than which style of soccer you play. Now, the difference here is, with Brazil, they do have the players. There is really no country on earth that has more talent at their disposal than the Brazilian national team. But is relationism the style of soccer that is going to get them back to the top, winning Copa America and winning the World Cup, which is what matters most for Brazil? And frankly, I'm conflicted. I don't really know. The romantic in me is cheering for Fernando Diniz because I think his style of soccer is some of the most beautiful soccer that I have seen played in recent history. However, the pragmatist in me thinks that positional play might actually just be more efficient than relationism at the end of the day. Now, I don't believe in the false dichotomy that you do one or the other. I do think a hybrid of the two is the best. Have some relationist players within a more principled positional play system. And for Brazil, I think this can work very, very well. When you have players like Vini Jr., Rodrigo, Paquetá, and if Neymar ever gets back from injury, you want those players to be able to have freedom, express themselves, use their skills and creativity. But we also need some players that basically just hold down the fort and stay in their positional roles to support them. And I think that's probably the best thing at the end of the day. Now, going forward, I haven't heard any news that Fernando Diniz is being removed as the interim manager of Brazil or that he is being made the full-time manager yet. However, I think with Copa America coming up in 2024, Brazil should probably make that decision in the immediate future. And we have to ask, how long can Diniz juggle the act of coaching both Fluminense and the Brazilian national team? Unfortunately, I think he might have to part ways with Fluminense. And if Brazil can do well in this next Copa America, bare minimum, they need to make the final. Preferably, they need to win it. Then Fernando Diniz might be the man for Brazil in the 2026 World Cup. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below.